You're all right, guys. Welcome to your um Mercury and Sagittarius transit talk, baby. Baby. Shout out to y'all watching live on TikTok. And shout out to y'all watching live on IG. Shout out to YouTube fam. I appreciate you. Things is looking up. Things is looking nice. Despite my active warrant, we are good. We are out here. Okay. Shout out to Ari. Thank you for joining us. Shout out to all of you guys joining us here. Um, Sheesh. All right, cool. 3 days in a row. Yep, we grinding out here. Yeah, let's get this show on the road. This won't be too long. Mercury moves pretty quick. And yeah, we're gonna be talking about Mercury and Sagittarius. All right. Mercury's transit through this is gonna be pretty dope, living life on the edge. Yup, bro, not acting. Yup, I ain't not gonna get pulled over though. That being said, guys, yeah. Mercury, as I've shown you yesterday during the Mars and Capricorn transit talk. Happy Mercury Day. It's Wednesday. Mercury is going to pretty much catch up with the gang coming out of Capricorn. So right before Mars leaves Capricorn, Mercury is going to conjunct it at the very end of Capricorn, and they're all going to conjunct Pluto and Aquarius relatively together. Mars is going to, of course, catch up here and there. As Mars takes about 2 years to transit the zodiac, Mercury and Venus take 1 year. And Venus still retrogrades once every 2 years and still, on average, makes it around a year. Mercury, of course, the fastest moving planet, is going to take 1 year on average. It moves that fast. It retrogrades like 3 times a year. And just to remind you guys, the nature of Mercury, whereas Mars is our sexual desire, it's what we desire to do. It's our willpower. Venus is our heart. That's what I like about the personal planets. We have the outer planets that are more generational, save Saturn and Jupiter. The personals are personal to us. Mars are our private parts, right? Venus is our heart. Mercury is the brain. It is the processing input output capability of our brain to reason, rationalize, kind of tabulate functions, right? Shout out to my Mercury risings. If you're like me with Mercury on the AC, this is what makes us a lot more heady. This is what makes us a lot more intellectual, calculating. Some of you have multiple planets like this. So once again, thank you guys for joining. Mercury, like we mentioned, Mars is going to be how you like to do it. Venus is how you like it. And Mercury is, commenting on everything through this. So as we know, Mercury moves relatively quickly. Mercury was the first planet to enter Sagittarius at the end of Scorpio season. And then what happened? Mercury retrograded. Okay, we had a retrograde around in Aries. We had a retrograde in Leo, and now we've had the final retrograde in Sag coming back into Scorpio. And as it was retrograding back into Scorpio, Mars had already entered Sag. Venus had entered Sagittarius. The sun had entered Sagittarius. So before we really go, we're going to be talking about Mercury's transit as it has retrograded out of Scorpio, going direct, and is now finishing up the Sagittarius transit. Venus in Pisces. I like it delusional. Shout out to my Venus in Pisces and my Venus in the 12th housers. We a little bit different. Okay. We will stay misunderstood. And, it's hard to beat the allegations because other people with it they don't help us beat it, but it is what it is. I love Venus in the 12th. Venus is exalted in Pisces. A little bit of delusion goes a long way. A lot of the greatest things to ever been invented, you need to be a little bit delusional for. But we're going to be talking about Mercury. So, like I mentioned, we're going to be covering Mercury coming back into Sagittarius, the land of Sagittarianism. And now Mercury likes to be in a sign like Gemini, where it rules, or Virgo where it also rules, which is very significant because if you think about Mercury's function, Mercury experiments and analyzes. This is both Gemini and Virgo. Mercury simultaneously ascertains what we tie language to symbolism through Gemini, and then it analyzes details. Gemini is words, Virgo is numbers. And that lets us know of our brain's capability to crunch both words and numbers, with which those are different types of languages. Numbers and words are used in language systems, whether programming languages or romance languages, or, of course, communications, all of which do seek to communicate. Is Venus in Pisces right now? Good question. Venus is in Sagittarius. It is going through the land of Sagittarius. And now, of course, when you put Mercury in a sign like Gemini or Virgo where it can crunch numbers, Gemini and Virgo are the lower mind. Okay. The lower mind is a mind of gossip, current events. There were 3 blinds on that window, which I'm usually used to seeing 16 blinds, right? This is what happened. This is how it happened. This is really the realm of Mercury when we're analyzing and we're experiencing more literal quality and nature amongst other things. Okay. So when we put it in a bigger picture sign like Sagittarius, Mercury through Sagittarius is like trying to, it's not the best analogy, but it's like trying to clean a room with a toothbrush, right? You're taking a planet that likes to crunch more micro activity and you're putting it in a macro lens. Sag, unlike Gemini and Virgo, which is micro, right? Sag and Pisces is inherently macro. Sagittarius is where we get universal, right? And to put small talk in a bigger, higher minded avenue now takes Mercury that wants to be more analytical and literal, and it's putting it in more symbolic themes, in a symbolic sign that's more philosophical, that is inherently bigger picture, that looks into what things mean versus what they are and how they are. And that's why Mercury is not the biggest fan of being in Pisces or Sagittarius, but still functions surprisingly well in Sagittarius, as is synthesizing the meaning we analyze through Virgo. So this, of course, brings a lot of our insight. Remember, Mercury transits deal strictly with processing. And that's where I look forward to being able to give better computer analogies in my understanding of electricity and computers, because every device runs off a processor, and a lot of devices are formed and fashioned off of your body, which is like a living computer. So your computer has a processor. The brain is the processing unit of your body. And now when we look at Mercury transits, right, we're looking at processing. What is Mercury processing? Whereas the sun is our conscious awareness and what we're aware of, Mercury is going to feed our consciousness with what to actually define relative to what we're aware of. If you were just had awareness, you'd be like a baby, like wow, wow. You wouldn't know what to say. You wouldn't make sense of certain things. Everything would just be. Mercury is what allows us to be like, oh, that's my webcam, that's my computer screen. Da da da, and then of course there's different languages and the duality through these myths of the Tower of Babel and all sorts of stuff that account for, of course, miscommunication, communication. So, of course, you have certain languages that are universal, right? You know, regardless of what language you speak, when you see somebody cry, they're communicating to you a facet of their feelings. Okay, I'm not a fan of Mercury and Sag and Pisces. I feel you, Twin Starseed. I'm indifferent, but you know, this accounts for that. Unlike Jupiter, that likes to be in an expansive Sagittarian, higher minded sign, where now we're taking this analysis, we're taking these numbers and words, and we're forming what it means, right? So transits to Sagittarius are breakthrough. They're the final part of harvest before we take this perspective and we apply it cardinally, grounded and practically through Capricorn. No cap. Okay. So with that, the being said, We have Mercury trailing, of course, the gang, Venus, Mars, and the Sun. Mars at current is in Capricorn. And before we really go in, let's talk about the sequence of before we entered Sagittarius season. 5-star satisfied with my notification. You're alive. Thank you. Much appreciated. And as usual, as we continue, I would like for I'm sorry, for those of you who would like a live reading, click the description box below. You can join the queue, and I will, of course, send to you, or rather, I will just send me your chart unless I already have your chart, and we will, of course, look into the we will of course look into the transit for you. All right. And of course, any of you who want readings, you know the deal. All right. Prepare for that. So now, as we began this transit, okay, what happened was Mercury was the first to enter Sagittarius. We were at the crux of now finalizing this transformation of finalizing this transformation of the awareness through Scorpio that we through this Scorpio transit had finished. Okay. Mercury entered Sagittarius, and then immediately it began to retrograde around 5 degrees Sagittarius, not in the constellations, but the actual invisible zodiac, the signs. Okay. Then what happened was, as it retrograded, right, in the relationship between our conscious awareness and Mercury, we know by myth, Mercury, Hermes, is the god of communication, who, of course, as we can see astronomically, we can mythologize that as Mercury is sending messages to the sun, right? It's it's the closest orbit around the sun. And Mercury, some other cultures will call it Elegua. Before you can talk to the other Orisha, you have to go through Elegua, who's going to send the messages, right? The light that casts from the sun is eventually going to go through Mercury before it goes through even as far as Pluto, which orbits, which isn't even seen as a planet. All right. So the retrograde sequence, as you learn astrology and astronomy, is very fascinating, especially given that this happens 3 times a year. So what happens is, if Mercury didn't retrograde, it would move so fast that our processing would happen ahead of time of everything we're aware of. Mercury is going to move very quickly ahead of our awareness, meaning we're going to process information ahead of what we're aware of. We're going to be thinking about, oh, I can go to the store and get this. I can prepare for this concert with this. Then later the sun will be there, and we're going to be aware of what our brains have already planned, set, processed. Boom. Mercury then goes retrograde. Mercury appears to move backwards because, of course, the retrograde isn't really moving backwards. It's like an optical illusion in its appearance of going backwards, where we see the degrees move behind. Now our conscious awareness is proceeding what we're processing. Our brains are re-evaluating everything that we had processed prior that we're now aware of. And now we are sorting through, as we are becoming more aware of events. Our brains are going back to what we processed prior, and it's re-evaluating it in light, son, of new awareness. Okay. Then Mercury goes direct. Mercury now, through that shadow period, revisits everything that was reevaluated in light of this new awareness. It catches up with the sun, so it conjuncts with the retrograde, then it conjuncts going direct. Now our awareness and our brains are aligned, and then Mercury moves ahead of the sun, and then we process information ahead of what we're aware of, and we do that process again. This is what enables us during these perspective stages with the zodiac to gain information, be aware of it, reevaluate that information, come back around, gain epiphanies, and move forward. All right. So we're in that process at the breakthrough point of Sagittarius, where not only are we finally breaking through everything we've done late March through April, but now the nature of what we're processing is synthesizing higher meaning of everything through Sagittarius season that we have ascended our awareness and higher meaning of. Okay. So as you can see, Mercury, as the moon is getting ready to now be new by Friday, Mercury and the moon are aligning our subconscious understanding with what our brains are processing real time. And due to the nature of Sagittarius, unlike the small numbers and words we like to crunch together, we're putting like a big picture through a small thistle, and it is aiding in these bigger picture mindsets. Of course, Gregorian, in a Gregorian sense, it's the end of the year. So we're looking at everything we've accomplished this year, what that means for us, and where we're going to take that to now set our goals for next year, New Year's resolutions, amongst other things. All right. And now the aspects we want to look at are Mercury, that in coming back to Sagittarius, like Venus and Mars, sextiles Pluto, 300 degrees. We're looking at, of course, the subsequent Mercury square to Saturn and Neptune, the Mercury trine to Chiron, and that final quincunx to Uranus, and of course, the quincunx to Jupiter and Cancer. So this is not only going to reshape our brains processing the bigger picture, but like I used with the new and full moon, it is also refocusing the camera lens so that we are, by the time it goes into Capricorn, directing the meaning of what we're thinking and how these thoughts imagineer, of course, new lines of thinking by the time the Sun and Mercury conjunct in cardinal Capricorn, which will apply these insights. Now, let's de-jargonify everything I've said to the best of my ability. You're going to be noticing a lot. And a lot of what you're noticing in a short amount of time is going to synthesize 6 to 7 months worth of experience to now make a greater sense of not only what everything you've been experiencing means, but what direction and decisions to take with it. Shout out to Elemental Ministries. So concerning all of that, there's major epiphanies that are going to apply wisdom that only experience could have afforded you. And this is going to make coming into January powerful epiphanies and aha moments that will complete a lot of your awareness and understanding and prepare for you to make breakthroughs that you've spent pretty much your entire life. Well, yeah, but the entire year and your entire life preparing to make and break through. So for those of you watching, this is already really great news concerning not only what you've been working at and working towards, but of course, what you are ready to, of course, conclude in said thinking, and how you're going to communicate this in preparation for why you're even communicating what you're communicating. So the first part of this transit, which now at this stage, Mercury has gone out of its retrograde and it's back in Sagittarius at 8 degrees. We're going to see the square, the 270-degree closing square to North Node, which will eventually be to Saturn Neptune. So what makes this a closing square? Take my Astro 104 course, motherfuckers. I'm just joking. The Astro 104 course is going to actually go into the jargon I use as far as what's a closing square, what's an opening square, what are the degrees. An opening square is a 90-degree angle between 2 points, which based on the slower moving part is going to map what we're basing it on. So Gemini, when we had, of course, the Gemini transits around 6 months ago, especially with the sun especially, and Mercury had already passed by. It's now making a Leo signature at this point. This is where we had the 90-degree opening square. And now at 270 degrees, 12 degrees Sag, 12 degrees Pisces. This is 270 degrees. We have made it to the Capricorn signature, completion. This completion is breaking through the destiny of what we're meant to believe, and the brain processing, completing the synthesis of the process of developing our beliefs through our thoughts in Gemini, through our habits in Virgo. And now, what does that mean? You're aware of this already. Venus has polished how we bring beauty to this and smoothing it over. We've taken action to complete this. Now our brains are wrapping up what to think about it and what those thoughts mean. And a sequence like this, of course, prepares for you to not only come into this sense of now wrapping everything together through integration, but breaking through very important decisions we're going to get ready to make once this goes into Capricorn. No Cap. Okay. So that north nodal axis is actually occurring right before the sun enters Capricorn. And as that accomplishes this, the next step we're going to see is, of course, not just the trine to Chiron and Aries, but also subsequently the square that we're going to have with Saturn and Neptune. This is going to happen on the 21st of December, right before Christmas. At this stage, we have already had the new moon. Something to keep in mind that the new moon is forming right now. So as we're activating this new vision, our brains are getting ready to catch up and process what all that means. What does it mean that now we're aware of stepping into new meaning? We're activating new perspective. Now we're going to pick up the pieces with our brain function in an effort to, of course, realistically come together. So this is where the things that you're working towards are going to shed a lot and release any more uncertainty, any more doubt. You're going to be getting ready to pick up the speed. Everything I'm going to start talking about now is following the activation of this brand new Sagittarius cycle, aka the sun and moon in Sagittarius. And you're going to be emerging awareness to direct this into Capricorn as we step into 22nd. And the sun goes into Capricorn, the land of no cap. Okay. And of course, from the 21st, coming into the, as we can see, end of December, oh snap, okay, Mercury's gonna leave the second decan. All right, the moon is going to be coming into Aries, and as the moon is transiting Chiron and Aries, we're going to have the trine of Mercury to Chiron. Now, unlike the opening trine we had in Leo, this is going to be the closing trine. The activity that is connecting towards Chiron and Aries transit that we've had for the past few years, which is 100% responsible for self-healing. So all the planets we're having towards Chiron, the activations we have every year, late April, or really mid-April, late March to mid-April, are activating these cycles to expose ego vulnerabilities that we have, as well as put you in a position to now, by Sagittarius, see the bigger picture. All right. What is the meaning of all the activity we've activated relative to these lessons per year? As over the next couple of years, Chiron will move into Taurus. And now this self-healing is going to be healing more our self-worth and our value and increasing wealth in that. So to answer the question we had before, the actual new moon sequence we're going to have is actually going to occur, I believe, at 28 degrees. So to answer your question, D. Gordon, this is going to be, Sir David, at 28 degrees. And I would invite you to see that this 28 degree conjunction is going to be quincunxing Uranus at 28 degrees. That's why this new moon is a huge deal, very huge deal. This is going to happen on Friday. So we're going to do the new moon ceremony on Friday, but still very significant, very, very, very significant. And of course, as we move forward, by the time the moon comes out into Aries, we come into this next sequence. And then after Aries, what we're going to see is, of course, the square to Saturn and Neptune. So now the final sequence of Mercury coming out of Sagittarius is going to hit us in this sweet spot where now Venus and Mars and the sun are getting ready to really conjunct each other over the second decan, and Mercury is cleaning out the space, just processing the meaning of everything that we're already applying in Capricorn. So let's talk about this aspect. Once again, not only are we in a position to realistically now come into the end of this transit and to really overcome a lot of everything where we're breaking through. Oh, 29 degrees. Nice. It's going to immediately trine you and show you that higher and show you that breakthrough. Not only are we now kind of in this position to square Saturn and Neptune and quincunx Uranus, but at the end of Sagittarius, that void space where our awareness, our desire, our love is already applying practically the vision we gained and were aware of through Sagittarius. And let me give you a better analogy. Now that when Mercury's ahead of the sun, it's you have an assistant. You're like, hey, go handle all this for me before I go to this meeting. Get all the stuff that I need. Bring me a spreadsheet, right, of all the stuff that I'm going to need to prepare for the meeting. Now that Mercury is behind the sun, while you're already making decisions in Capricorn, Mercury is taking that prior spreadsheet and it's checking everything out. Okay, he did this right. This vision was right. This vision was right. It's like I was aware that, oh, the fact that I won this track meet means that I'm entering the next race at the top seed. Mercury now covering that space behind the sun is checking off, okay, he's in the first seed in this meet. These are like more details to understand about what we were just aware of. And it's important to make that distinction as far as what we're doing in Capricorn versus what our brains are wrapping up it means as we're already doing this. Because once Mercury goes into Capricorn, it's going to apply this processing of information in a perceptual level, practically, cardinally, and in a grounded fashion. And at that Capricorn level is where you're going to be completing and getting a lot of, insight relative to not just the, activation of your own power, or the completion of your own power, but it's wrapping up everything we've done in 2025. And that's the best way to see, of course, transits closing out of the final harvest period into the last 3 signs of conclusion. All right. Of course, Gregorian style, we start the next year in the beginning of the conclusion. And then we have the new year during, of course, spring, during Aries. But regardless, not only are we accounting for the shift of perspective to be applied, now, like we mentioned with Mars, like we mentioned with the sun, like we mentioned with Venus, Mercury that's going to be squaring Saturn and Neptune is going to bring your brain up to speed on how you have maintained integrity of your belief systems. And this is very important to keep in mind because concerning this, right, eventually we're going to have Saturn and Neptune in Aries. So these squares are not going to happen in Sag. They're going to happen in Cancer and Capricorn, where we're going to be looking at, all right, what is the integrity of our characters? And how does that challenge where we feel comfortable? And where does that challenge how we develop our legacy in our careers? What happened with Pisces is that we were squaring between what our thought process in Gemini is and what the meaning of the analysis of these thoughts are, and how all of that feeds into our beliefs. So this is where now you're going to be seeing more and processing more. I fulfilled God's promise on my life, right? Like I believed I can do this in March. This is what I'm seeing it looks like. And this is where it's very literal now. Mercury is going to bring more of that literacy, literalness, and literacy into our ability to communicate and put these facets into words. Okay. And most importantly, right, we are going to have that quincunx to Uranus. The moon is going to be transiting through Uranus and then in Gemini as Mercury will then leave Sagittarius. And by the time it's in Capricorn, the moon will be leaving Gemini and going into Cancer, setting up the full moon in Cancer. Okay. So as we've just revealed, the majority of Mercury in Sagittarius is going to field the new moon in Sagittarius at the end of Sag, all the way to moon in Gemini, with which Mercury rules, to set up the full moon. And by that full moon axis and aspect, this is going to prepare for us accordingly to realistically break through the actions and the decisions that will complete the process of developing our consciousness through 2025. The purpose of 2025, to bring us out of the old world into the new world, with which we will activate 2026. Okay. And of course, by the time we come in that full moon, it's going to be the beginning of January 3rd, January 4th. All right. So now that we've talked about the math, let's kind of synthesize what all that might mean. I feel sorry for my ops. This is going to be the final level of breakthrough. We're going to be coming into a higher meaning of realization, and a lot that you were unsure about is going to really crystallize so that you can aid in the decision making post January 2nd, that's going to process information more practically and in a much more grounded fashion. What this is going to enable us to do moving forward is to take all this insight and information and to project forth a vision that aligns us with what direction we take with that vision. Remember, Mercury is Sagittarius is also the creator. So it's going to put words and literacy, right, and a literalness to what you're creating and what all that means. It's like if you're programming something, you're seeing what the coding actually plays out as. And if you don't like what you see, you go back and tweak the coding so that the finished product looks nice. And the reason why I say it like this is, yes, you're going to have new ideas relative to, oops, I invited someone on accident. You're going to have ideas relative to a sense of what you're able to do in order to kind of start new things. But we are in a conclusion mindset. A lot of what it is you're breaking through in this sense is preparing for you to realistically not only break through, but to conclude on the ideas and the goals that you began to make back in March, back in April. And of course, once again, to really break through a lot of profound realization and insights as a result. I think this is going to be very rewarding. And the worst case scenario is that you might come into information that goes against your plans. You will have the opportunity to adjust your vision where necessary so that you are in a position to align more with where you're headed towards. Once again, okay, and yeah, I can feel only talking to yourself on IG. Shout out to the few of you on IG. All right. Thank you guys for staying live. What this can do is put yourself in a position you don't want to get stuck kind of worrying about what didn't break through for you, because we're exiting an old world. Okay. The new contract is not being acted on until late March of 2026. So that's like, you have your ambitions for your career, for your life, but you are within a management structure that over the past 25 years has produced all sorts of programs, has given people jobs, blah, blah, yada, yada, yada. Yesterday's price is not today's prices, right? And now that management and building is closed down, right? Let's say like Nickelodeon. Let's say you work for Nickelodeon and you're a program director, or you're an animator for Nickelodeon. Well, the management staff that you entered this workforce in, that has been there for 30 years, it's over. It's been bought out by new management. So you might have goals, but you're not going to be able to apply that to a management structure and building that has signed its last contract. They're going to tell you, sorry, take it up with new management. New management is filled. Yeah, I would love, send all your merch to me, guys. Just email me, or if you need the address or anything. But, this is this is beautiful because the new management is filled with a lot of young genius talent, and Pluto Sagittarians born after 95 with the vision to create this new world. So the reason why I'm saying that is, for many of you, it can look like a dead end. It could look like certain things are going to end and stop, but you can't let that discourage you, because it's only ending out of this old world cycle. New opportunities are going to open up for you crazy when new management comes in, and the new Nickelodeon staff. They might even change the name of the company, but it's new managers, new staff, new writers, new everything. They're hiring some people from the old staff, but they're hiring all sorts of new talent. They're bringing new departments that didn't exist in the old management, right? Just like in real life, now there's so many new job creations. There's people whose jobs are being replaced. We have we have more money going into artificial intelligence that 30 years ago, nobody was investing money in that. You know what I mean? There's new departments which create the opportunity for new paths. So that's why coming in the next year, that's going to open up your opportunity. And shout out to Classic Finesse. That's going to open up the opportunity post January and March of next year to really rock, especially if you're an Aries. Aries, you're the most important equation to this, because the universe has set you aside in order to prepare humanity to be this new player one. All right. Aries is one of the most important people right now, because everyone is getting ready to see what the new face of this next 30-year era is. And what we need now more than ever is authenticity. People are tired of all the old shit, the grifters, people who kind of just milked out old models. And it's going to be the Aries, it's going to be the Geminis, it's going to be the Leos, it's going to be the Aquarians that are, and amongst everyone else, that's going to really inspire people to push forward in the paths that people may have never thought to challenge. And for many of you watching, it's going to look like it's just you alone doing your thing. It's Aquarius's turn too for the next 20 years. The most important signs that we're going to see coming through: Aquarius with Pluto and Aquarius till 2044, Aries with Saturn Aries till 2028, and Neptune Aries till 2034, Gemini with Uranus and Gemini up until 2034, 2033. Most important signs right now. We're going to be top fiving. Taurus is going to, of course, come out of prominence and then back in for Saturn to just kind of structure what they pioneered. So shout out to Pisces, shout out to Capricorn, shout out to Taurus. Those three signs carried us for half a decade. Now we're shifting more into masculine, expressive, going outside energy, putting in quotes. All right. So it's very exciting. The reason why I'm saying that is a lot of you guys are on the forefront of pioneering things that everyone's going to copy you and doing, but it doesn't feel like that right now. Right now, it feels like you're the lone soldier pioneering this craft, and we thank you in advance, because this is going to inspire people along the right direction as we transition out of one old world into another. This is not the world that your parents born in the 60s or the 50s or the 40s built. Right? A lot of stuff we have here was built by the baby boomers, right? This isn't the world that the Gen Xers had to carry coming into the past couple of decades. This is a new world that is going to be led by Gen Xers, by millennials, by budding Gen Zers who are now just coming of age and putting on quarter zips. We're building this world for the Gen Alphas, the Gen Betas, who are going to innovate every field of science and all sorts of other fields. And we're going to go through our wars and bubble bursts and great and horrible things. So it's an honor to be here with you. If you were born, you made the decision before you were born to choose your parents, if you believe in that predetermination thing, and to, of course, to be here. I have every reason to believe that if you're still alive and you renewed your contracts with the universe over the next, or really with the Reaper, over the next 30 years, you're here to build the new world. And I love that. The quarter zip trend ain't half bad at all. You're here to build the new world. You are here to show people what is possible. And I ask, I beg of you, I beseech, have grace on yourself. Please do not be comparing your success to other fucking people. Some of you, regardless of when you start what you're doing, it's because of you that thousands upon thousands of people are going to really break through. Do I use Chat GPT for astrology? It's a good question because AI's understanding of astrology is better than most active astrologers right now. Um, Honestly, no. Like I use Chat GPT gets a lot wrong when it comes to astrology. It gets the general theory right, but if you don't know astrology, you will get misled because it'll get certain degrees wrong, it'll get certain terms wrong. And I mean, like if you don't know it, you're gonna be saying some bullshit. You know what I mean? But the theoretical part of it is on point. So I don't use GPT to interpret stuff because I'm fucking fine. I'm really good at what I do. So like GPT is really more of like an assistant. But like if I'm going to like when I made my courses, right? Like ChatGPT will fuck you if you don't know astrology, and that's with any field. So when I made my courses, right, I created the courses. I created every part and field, and then I fed it to GPT. GPT took my notes, and then it was able to now, like an assistant, type out the general structure of everything I already fed it. So it's not like I asked GPT, make this course for me, and then it made it up even though it would know what to do. I had to feed it and then I had to take it and then I had to like edit it because it got a lot wrong. So just something to keep in mind because I was worried that some of you would see these courses and you'd be like, oh, he just had GPT make the courses. If I gave you what GPT gave you, you would you wouldn't necessarily be learning properly. But that being said, as AI gets more intelligent, it's going to be a lot smarter. And that's why I'm mentioning it here. Thank you for asking, because that's the Pluto sextile. Every Pluto and Aquarius axis, even though AI has been around, right? A lot of AI isn't general intelligence. The AGI that's being developed has a lot to do with Pluto and Aquarius. It wasn't until Pluto was 1-2 degrees Aquarius AI came out of development, and now people are talking about this. So with Uranus going into Gemini, you're going to have a lot more people integrating their work, their assistants with these models that are going to replace a lot of people's jobs. Leo King's hypergate, right? I'm betting on that to really break through when Jupiter goes into Leo. I think the Leo King is going to be a wild pioneer moving forward as far as like bringing this to a virtual and visual place. So, you know, power to him, right? And a lot of our brains are a GPT of its own. So, you know, you'd be surprised. AI is going to do a lot of help for a lot of these fields. It's just not relying on artificial intelligence and you using it like an assistant, limiting the work that it does. So you also open up room for real people to kind of put their soul into it. You know what I mean? Instead of just kind of drawing from other people who are working tirelessly. That being said, guys, I hope you enjoy this. The most important part, while we're squaring Pisces, you're going to have a lot of people who are not aware of what this new cycle is. A cycle like this is a young France who beheaded all of its monarchs and just killed thousands of people, desperately figuring out its way as a democratic entity surrounded by monarch vultures who wanted to, of course, were afraid of revolutionary in their own countries. And like the France you see today is not the France that was there when Pluto just entered Aquarius and it was fighting out of its own monarchy. Did France know that it would be what it is now? This was around the time Napoleon sold Louisiana to America, right? America now having to purchase Louisiana during its own civil war. You know what I mean? Okay, I'm getting the time off, but like America didn't know it would be in this position. France didn't know it would be in this position. There's a lot of speculation around what the new world would look like. And this is where, above all, you can't let bumblefucks who are not, and that's why I'm glad. I don't know, Classic Finesse, if you're still here, if you're on TikTok, follow that man, because he's a really great example of what it looks like to be a part of this new world, like highlighting in his field of expertise the difference between strength training and just working out. You know what I mean? Just doing these exercises. I know nothing about that type of stuff, but he's breaking it down in a simple way that opens up new avenues around how to really gain proper training through this. And each and every single one of you in your respective fields are going to be pioneering. The key word is pioneering and innovation. There's so many young adults getting ready to infiltrate this job market. And it's, I think, going to be very exciting. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be tough, but you're not a bitch. So it's going to be awesome. Okay. I think it's going to be very beautiful in preparing you to see through this Sagittarius season what steps to begin to make. And as things stand right now, shout out to Anita Flying High. Just stay focused, stay locked in, stay focused on what goals you have, that through Capricorn, you will gain practical footing. The whole purpose of this Sagittarius season and Mercury in Sagittarius is to define what this vision is and then fill that vision in with the proper language and coding that Mercury catching up to the rest of these placements will do. And that's all we got for Mercury and Sag. Once again, if any of you want a live reading really quick, just send me your chart. You can email that to me at thepeacedealer.com. I have my PayPal, Cash App, and all that information. If not, that it's not necessary. This is basically the last transit talk I'm going to do. I'm going to resume on Friday with the new moon. And then as soon as Monday, if not Sunday, we'll be doing all the Capricorn season videos. We'll do the monthly peace report for Capricorn season, and we'll get it going. So that being said, like we did before, for those of you who want to join the workshop, if you are premium members, well, we're going to break down what that is. Okay, what this is going to be for the signs. A lot of the math I kind of already did here, so I'm just going to make that one more tarot card focused, and we're going to pull 12 cards for each of the signs. Okay, so you guys stay blessed as always. I'm going to start the workshop in another 8 minutes, but give me like 15-20 minutes if you don't see me start exactly on the top of the hour. I'm going to shoot my mom a call real quick, and then after that conversation, I'm going to do this really quickly. All right, so you guys stay blessed as always. Oh, Ashley, I see you've sent your chart. Thank you very much. Let's see. I'm going to wait for the Cash App or the PayPal, and we'll look into it. But right off the bat, I see you a fellow Taurus rising like me. And it's nice to see you also have an Aqua Sun because, of course, for you early Aqua Suns born at the end of January, I'd say you're one of the most important part of the equation relevantly. You got your Mercury here. This is going to put you in a position to immediately step into this sense of awakening properly. Okay. And as a fellow Taurus rising, Aqua is our 10th house of career. So it's really powerfully going to prepare you in order to step into what legacies in this new world look like and what to prepare for. So yeah, if you're interested in the Sagittarius season breakdown, Ashley, just waiting on the Cash App or the PayPal, I'll break that down for you. And any single one of you also, I got your Cash App. So yeah, that being said, anyone else of you who would like to, you can join the queue here. Once again, you have the King of the Gods on your rising, which I think is very amazing as a Jupiter in Taurus. Now, as an Aqua Sun, most of the Sagittarius placements are making an Aquarius signature to you. And I love your chart because your sun is on the AC. Something to keep in mind. And oh, yes, you're the one I saw downtown. So guys, when I was downtown to hand in at the courthouse, I was parking in the parking space and I saw Ashley. She said hi. I wasn't even sure at first. And knowing you're an Aquarius is such a good omen, because now it's like, okay, I did something towards my legacy and you were there to see me, which I fucking love. And there was someone else who recognized me from my channel who was in the courthouse helping. She works at the courthouse. I thought it was just so mind-blowing. So that being said, your sun on the MC, you're not only just a celestial, right? you are a public figure, right? You are somebody who is going to be an important facet of this new age and this new world, okay? That really prepares in order to step forward accordingly, to facilitate a lot of these changes. The minimum for these live readings is $30, but I got you. No worries. It's totally fine. And now with this coming out of your eighth house, partially seventh house, it's completing everything you started, of course, late January, right? Where you were activating a whole lot of this legacy with Pluto that's on your MC and my MC. It's going to be awakening more the nature of career opportunities that's going to open up as a celestial spirit, and your brain. It's going to be awakening more of your supernatural claircognizant potential, being at the right place at the right time. So from January of this year to, of course, March of this year, what that served to do is to really unlock, because you're born 89, shout out to Goat Squad, with this destiny, everything you're meant to believe and with who. It's bringing around towards you the connectivity of who's in your corner, who is achieving this success with you. And it's so important to look forward to, because I can imagine through 2021 with Saturn, you've put in a lot of work to secure your legacy. Well, what's going to happen after your nodal return? We're going to have the final eclipse in March on your North Node. North Node by July is going to go into Aquarius. And when the North Node goes into Aquarius, this is going to revisit our career. That's why I mentioned in the Magic Moon message, the last time the North Node was in Aquarius, I voted for Obama. I was a freshman in college. And this has put you in a position, us in a position now that it's back, for me to revisit this field, right? Where I was studying electrical engineering, changed majors later in the decade, and now I'm coming back to electricity. You know what I mean? So this is going to be really good for our career. And I'm glad you said no one's in your corner, because what Saturn in our 11th did was effectively weed out the people in your corner who don't hold their weight. So the Sagittarian aspect in this eighth house coming out your seventh is drawing important boundaries, and it's transforming your relationships with others that align with the ways you are innovating your personality. Once again, anyone who wants a live reading before we close out, you're welcome to join the queue. But now you have Uranus in your first house natally that's innovating this genius. And as an aqua sun, that's your ruling planet. So a lot of this hard work, a lot of this sleeping on yourself is going to very quickly break through and not only transform the meaning of how you have evolved since 2024, where Jupiter came out your first, went into your second, and now prepared you accordingly through the second to now map how you feel about your attitude in this progressed rising sense. But it's preparing you for January again, where you're going to activate more clarity than ever about what you're meant to do. And that's where us born in 1990, U89, Saturn is getting ready to square our Saturn. Neptune is getting ready to square our Neptune. And this is going to integrate the return that you had 2018 and we had 2020 and bring in a whole lot of the karma and the legacy and the work that we're meant to do. Okay. And, I think a lot of what you have had to overcome is going to come into a lot of perspective. So that's the most important thing I really want to highlight towards you, especially as a moon in Libra, that's going to feel the social understanding of where to balance what spaces publicly to support you in these endeavors. I'm very excited for you, Ashley, because your 7-degree aqua sun is so close to Pluto and the conjunction that we're going to have this late January that you're going to know more than ever what your career is shaping. And through the first half of 2026, it's going to set you up for that. So by the latter half of 2026, you're going to be aligned with what you're meant to accomplish, what you're meant to achieve. You can look forward to breaking through and awakening so much more opportunity, and you owe it to yourself for holding space for the rest of us universally. You're literally like an alien who has decided to help guide humanity through your experiences and what you know, and to be put in positions that tap you into, the average person, right? As an elite, right? and to give you that experience that will really bridge so many different people and types of people moving forward. So a lot of this eighth house is going to really wrap up your value with other people's money, right? To kind of clear away all the old obligations and contracts, and it's going to open up a whole new world for you moving forward, especially with Uranus in your first once again. So yeah, that's what we got. You guys stay blessed as always. Okay. And I'm going to see you guys shortly. And until next time, peace.